Welcome in, wrestling fans. Jeff Upson alongside Eric Knopsteiner. And Eric, man, do we have a ton of stuff to go over tonight, specifically with the PIAA and the wrestling season itself. I mean, just a ton of developments here. I don't even want to waste any time because we have a ton to go over. And I did bring my mask just in case anyone's watching from the PA Department of Health. Got my PA Power mask here, Eric.
You're good there. All right.
Okay, I'm
Not
good.
great. Not great for audio, but may improve the viewership a little bit.
And it's probably gonna make Greg Warnock upset because he doesn't have one of these. It's fogging up my glasses, so I'm not gonna leave it there anymore. Um, Eric, I mean, there's a ton that we have to go over. Specifically, the PIAA Board of Directors meeting was just ended a couple hours ago now. So, I mean, we've got a lot of information, a lot of developments happening within the last couple hours.
Yeah, and you've been able to be on top of it a lot more than I have. So I'm going to rely on you for some of the information because I just got home from work, haven't been able to dive into it like you have. But you've been kind of looking at this and seeing what's going on today.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Eric, there's so much to go over. There's a lot of unknowns. I'll put that out there. There's a lot of unknowns, but there's also some things that are maybe not necessarily they've been talked about, but they're not necessarily accurate. There's been a little bit of misinformation put out, and I don't blame that on individuals themselves, but it also is there's just a lot of complexities to this. And I found there's a few things. One is that there's not a lot of clear communication, Eric. Right? There's a lot of different people saying different things, and you have so many cooks in the kitchen. Right? There's so many different people. You have your individual school districts, you have your leagues, your districts, you have the PIAA, and then you have the PA Department of Health. So we all have seen the new State Department of Health guidelines on mask wearing. Did you get to see that, Eric, at all?
I did. I just saw that it said that athletes should wear while competition is what I saw. Right. That's what it said.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly cases are surging, right? Cases are surging in Pennsylvania, Allegheny County specifically, where I live. There's been a lot of new cases. In fact, I think we were just put on some type of lockdown or stay-at-home order. I don't know if it's a recommendation or an order. I mean, I'm a police officer in the city of Pittsburgh, so I don't think I'm going to go around, telling people they can't meet. But, 10% of our departments are off right now because of quarantine or positive COVID cases. So, yeah, I mean, Philly and Pittsburgh for sure, the cases are very much skyrocketing. So the new mask orders include wrestling, well, sports, so even when you're at the gym, they're saying you have to wear a mask even when working out, which is, I, I mean, it's ironic because those are the times when you want to have the ability to breathe clearly through your nose and your mouth. From a person who has a deviated septum, it's not fun to not be able to breathe out of your nose very well. And Eric, I feel like this is just completely against really what the science says about COVID. Is if you're going to be working out, you got to be able to breathe.
Yeah, I don't know how this is possible, and especially we talked a little bit about it last time about how do you wrestle with a mask on. I mean, we talked about just wearing the mask as the protective mask, from years gone by that, a guy with a broken nose or, a cut or something like that wears, and how difficult that is to breathe in. I don't understand how you're going to have a mask over your mouth and nose and then possibly a guy's torso on top of it, if you're on your back. Yeah, how do you breathe like that? I don't know that I could do it.
Yeah, and from what the PIAA has said during the board meeting today was they reached out to the governor's office for guidance or clarity on the mandate, and they have not received any feedback yet. And Dr. Lombardi said, and I quote, "It'll be an individual school assessment," and that goes for the mask mandate. So, there's playoff games starting this weekend. Pine Richland, I know, is playing, and they're in Allegheny County. Are these guys and folks that are involved in this, are they going to have to wear masks while they're playing football? Because according to the Department of Health, I think you do. You open your up for a total weird conversation about who's wearing masks, who's not. I mean, the whole thing is just so unclear. It's so muddied. It's like what is
Well,
going on here?
and I know you had pointed out one of the ambiguities whenever you're looking at the steps that the PIAA released today. I mean, there are a couple in there that you could look at it and you say, wait, it says this, and then someone else looks at it and says, no, it says this. You know, it's really hard to find clarity in there on a couple of these situations, and that's really going to determine how a lot of these school districts react and how they handle these things.
I mean, for sure, because my interpretation of it is different than your interpretation of it. We saw that even within media members on the call today, how there was a ton of people that just didn't know, even just, that statement was said, and then people weren't able to decipher what was actually being said. So I want to put up a few images on the screen just to kind of show you, what we're looking at here. So you have the PA Department of Health is at the top of this chain. Then you have the PIAA, right? They're the next level down from the PA Department of Health. They're the ones they have conversations with Dr. Levine, Tom Wolf, all those folks that are involved in that. But then you have the individual district, right? So you have PIAA, which governs all of those 12 districts. Then you have 12 individual districts. Each one of those districts can have different protocols in place, right? That's just a fact. You can have some districts that have different protocols. Then you go even lower. You have your leagues. So within a district, you have different leagues. For example, the District 3, District 1, they have 6 leagues on their own, right? The WIPIAL, on the other hand, doesn't have any leagues. It's just the WIPIAL. Even lower than that, you have your schools, right? The PIAA stands from the beginning, from day one. They have said we are going to let it up to individual schools and individual folks in their communities, because what happens in Elk County is different than Chester County, right? So we are allowing you to have the freedom and flexibility to work this out in your own. So the problem with that is, which I love, but the problem with that is the PIAA now says to the Department of Health and says, well, hold on, we got questions, we need clarification. It's like playing the game of telephone, right? It's a game of telephone. You get the message and then the next person gets it, and then by the end it's like, what happened? So we have all these different people, and I'd like to call them players. Like, you all these different players that are making decisions. I mean, we've seen individual schools that say, you know what, even though our district says it's okay, even though the PIAA says it's okay, we're not going to do this because our cases are just sky high right now. So it's very interesting, the hierarchy here of how the decisions are made, and really it makes it for a very complicated process for information to get flow through this channel of communication, Eric.
Yeah, it is very confusing. And as I said, today I was at work and I'd look at Twitter and I'd see something and I'd jump into the chat group and I'd say, hey, is this right? Like, do we know? Is this actually happening? And so I'm glad you were able to kind of filter through some of that stuff, because I just didn't have the time today to be able to sit there and dig through all of it. And there's so many different things out there that you don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. There are just so many different factors and interpretations, and it's also, the PIAA in itself is a little bit complicated. You have steering committees, you have different individuals, and you also have like safety committees. You have doctors that are giving recommendations, and that's the key word, recommendations. There's a lot of folks there that believe that something is happening. And it's really not, right? Because it's not shall, right? It should. So they're giving recommendations on things, but they're not necessarily written in stone. So another thing I wanted to show really quick on the screen is, this is what the PIAA, the Wrestling Steering Committee has brought out. So you can see the steering committee met on Wednesday, November 4th. So what they did was, and I have this up on the screen, if you can see that, I'll make it a little bit bigger for folks at home watching this. A few things. So they met and they discussed whether the committee should make any recommendation on the size of tournaments. The discussion included relying on the local state or local school health and safety plan, as well as the current guidance for occupancy limits in indoor facilities. So that is one aspect of this. The Wrestling Steering Committee met on the 4th, and they talked about those things. They made suggestions, such as limit tournament competition to single-day events. Now remember, if you look at this top, it says suggested provisions for schools for in-season events. These are only recommendations. These are not shalls. These are not you must do this. Weigh-ins may take place by team rather than weight class. Limit teams' weight classes for individual mats and tournaments competition. Athletes in season participates for the school team only. Locker rooms and shower use availability should be determined by local health and school safety. So that is essentially what the steering committee said in their first half. Now the second half of this is they also talked about the total number of teams in a tournament or in some type of event. A separate suggested provision for competition in a later administrative item summarizes this discussion. Now, if you look at this, this is where it gets a little interesting because point 2 says, discussion was held concerning the need to eliminate scrimmages. The committee believed that is best handled on a school-by-school basis. There's that key word, school-by-school basis, because they're very much letting these things up to the school-by-school. Discussion was held regarding permitting home weigh-ins prior to competition. No action was taken. I personally love that. I would love to weigh in at home, and then, just chow down into whatever I needed. A concern was raised by the committee that eliminating all tournament competition will increase the number of non-school or out-of-school events being sponsored during the season. Ding, ding, ding. If there's no tournaments, then PIAA Wrestling and that evil Rockfin and maybe even the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, they'll host some events. Bad.
Nittany Lions.
Nittany Lions. Or how did I almost called her Doctor. Judge Livingston say it? Nit Nanny?
Was that what it was? I missed that part, but I saw the Twitter. Yeah, but I know it was everybody's making fun of it being lions too.
She's my girl. I'm not. She's coming back tomorrow. I can't wait. Can't wait for that to come back tomorrow. So the committee was adamant that our schools will do a better job in maintaining safeguards for participation than out-of-school events. So they're better at it than us, is basically what you're saying. The government knows all. Discussion was held regarding the difficulty committee members are having with identifying a postseason format. The committee suggested 2 additional meetings be scheduled to share information on best practices. That'll be shared with the committee at a future date. And that was it, right? That was it. Now, Eric, I know we were hearing different things like, oh my gosh, there's no overnight stays. We can't have different teams come in. We can only have 4 teams. And I was reaching out to a lot of different folks, and they're like, whoa, no. These are recommendations. They're not provisions or protocols that we must follow, right?
Yeah, and that's what I know there was a lot of confusion from the coaches that I talked to. They didn't tell me that was set in stone, but they thought that was the way that it was looking, that they were going to move to a one-day state tournament, a one-day regional tournament, where there are no overnight stays, where you're competing the next day at least. Obviously, if you're bringing somebody into Hershey, they're probably going to end up staying overnight, at least one night anyway. But there was massive confusion throughout the week. And unfortunately, I don't know how much today cleared up any of that. It seems like there's still a lot of confusion. And I know you had talked about the 8-man bracket and whether it says that it doesn't say shall. So, I mean, to me, it seems like there's confusion in a lot of different spots with this.
And that's the biggest thing, right, is the lack of clarity and the confusion. And people are left to, everyone gets upset when they're talking about the rumor mill and all these different things, and you have different people making statements. But when it's not clear, right, and there's not clear communication, it's 2020. Can we not have clear communication that I can then disseminate through to ADs? ADs are really the ones that I think should have all this information, so they can go to all their different coaches and say, okay, fall sports, this is what we're working with. Winter sports, hey, this is what we have thus far. But it seems like a lot of ADs are kind of, unless they're a part of the PIAA in some capacity, it's kind of like they're left to kind of read in their paper and figure it out, or talk to do they have local reps? Yeah, they have district reps,
Yeah.
But how can a high school wrestling coach, head coach, not know whether you can have an overnight stay somewhere, or it's just kind of concerning, right? It's concerning.
Well, here's one that jumped out at me from the wrestling general considerations. It says disinfect the mats prior to and following competition. What does that mean, Jeff? Does that mean that we can have 4 dual meets, and as long as we clean the mats before it, and when we're done, then we're good? Does it mean that we clean it after each dual meet? Does it mean that we clean it after each match? Like what does prior to and after competition mean?
I don't know. You have a lot of good questions, Eric, and I don't have all the answers to that. I'm not sure.
No, I don't expect you to. That was the first thing that I read that, and I'm like, prior to and following competition. I mean, what do you classify as competition? This is going to feel like the flow trial. Like, what do you consider a competitor? I mean,
everything. Everything's a competitor.
We're gonna. Right, and so is every period competition? Do we have to wipe down the mat between the, obviously that'd be a little bit much, but I thought somewhere where somebody recommended having dual meets take place on 2 mats, and you wrestle a match, you wrestle 106 on mat 1, and wipe it down while 113 is going on mat 2, and then you have to wait for it to dry, and it's just I don't know. This is.
Yeah, it's wild.
There's so much confusion.
It's crazy, right? And when we look at just the specifics of what is being said, right? There's a lot of information, and one of the ones that you brought up was the 8-man bracket one. So, and I have it up here. In fact, I don't have it able to share on the screen, but if you go to our Twitter page, you can see it on there. It says, on a motion by Dr. Lynch, second by Dr. Snell, it was unanimously voted to recommend to the Board of Directors that accept the recommendations of the Wrestling Steering Committee. That was from November 4th. However, they want to amend it by adding the following items. The maximum number of teams and individuals per weight class in a tournament should be limited to 8. Okay, that's where we're that should. So they really should have highlighted, italicized, underscore, bold, everything. Should be limited to 8. Make clear that adults are prohibited from wrestling or sparring, I like that, with student athletes. Emphasis should be placed on host sites and maintaining separation between spectators and wrestlers to foster social distancing. Awards areas need to be set up away from wrestlers. Groups should not gather for photos unless social distancing is maintained and masks are worn. Weigh-ins either by team or individually. All sites need to be vigilant with enforcing mask wearing and social distancing. So those are what came up today, and that's where we had a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, we're going to have an 8-man state bracket. Well, no, not necessarily. That is all up for discussion, right? That's not set in stone. That is just their recommendation. So maybe they'll say 16. We don't know. We don't know is the PIAA going to follow the recommendations of the safety committee? I don't know.
Yeah, and that was who came up with that? I thought that was the steering committee that came up with those recommendations. Are you saying that was the safety committee?
Yeah, so that was an amendment today from Dr. Lynch. So that was the safety SMAC, whatever they call it, SMAC. That was from them. Just to say, in addition to the recommendations that the wrestling steering committee made. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, and everything is so fluid in these situations. It could be by the time we get to March that this is really slowed down and we could be okay with a 16 or 20 man bracket. We don't know. That's why I hate to put everything in stone right now and say this has to be done this way. We've talked about this before. If it comes down to it, I'd rather see us push it back a little bit and say, okay, let's not jump into this right now while everything is really, really bad, while cases are spiking. Let's take a little delay. If pushing it back until January 1st makes us be able to get through the season and have a state championship, then I'd rather see that than have us make all these rules right now and say, okay, we absolutely have to do this for the state tournament in March.
Yeah, I agree, and I hate the word fluid. I've heard it so many times, but it really is a fluid situation. It's ever changing. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen next week or next month, right? So the PIAA did release their return to competition guidelines, and these again were considerations. And Eric, I know you have a thing in front of you there that says wrestling general considerations, and they have all kinds of. There's like 28 bullet points of all these different things. Considerations for coaches, considerations for wrestlers, eliminate handshakes with opposing teams post-match, wear your mask on and off the mat, daily screenings prior to participation, wear masks on and off the mat, eliminate handshakes with opposing coaches post-match, the use of a fist bump in lieu of a pre- and post-match handshake. I'm all about the fist bumps.
Come on. Now, you just wrestled a guy for 6 minutes. You've had your hands all over him. You're cross-facing him. You're with a mask on. But, I mean, you're telling me that you've touched him for 6 minutes, but now you can't shake his hand.
No, I can't do
How
that.
is that? You know, you're
I can see
wrist control.
I can see like the other team like going over to the coach.
You're right.
I could see that, but like the actual wrestler
and
itself,
I can see handshake line at the end. I get that, but the guy you just wrestled for, you bled on and sweated on, and for 6 minutes, and now you're like, wait, nope, no touching hands. That's too much contact.
Yeah, that's weird. That's I can hug him, and it's not going to be a big deal, right? Considerations for refs: bring hand sanitizer. Hopefully you can find some. Bring your own. Consider use of commercially manufactured whistle cover. Pretty cool. Officials may wear a mask or face. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking here. We've got a lot of branding opportunities here. PA Power,
right here.
Hand sanitizer.
Oh yeah.
The masks.
Right here.
We can get the whistles. We could be all over it with the officials here.
Man, I think you're right. I think we forget our beef with Flo. I think we got a bigger thing coming. There's consideration for parents. Provide personal items for your child and clearly label them. I mean, look, we know as well as anybody, these are high school age kids. They're not going to listen to any of these things. Let's be honest. That's just not going to happen. Go ahead, Eric. It looked like you want to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I heard from somebody, different sport, but, all these kids know what's at stake. They know everything, but they were at a state competition and drank out of their buddy's water bottle.
Yeah. Right.
And they both tested positive after that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we hear this all the time. We drill it into everybody's head, social distance, practice all. But the simple fact is you're going to have this happen. And I don't know that we can stop it. Obviously, the goal is to try to cut it down as much as possible. But like you said, they're still high school kids, and they're just not going to follow all the rules that we try to set for them.
Yeah, and going back to that hierarchy that I was talking about, Eric, and I know I provided you in this document of all the different changes. So every single league, every single district has something different, right? So I know our friends out of District 11, Tom Hausnick and Brad Wilson, they do a great job of reporting on wrestling. And the EPC, the Eastern PA Conference, that includes some big name schools, right? That includes Northampton, Becca, Liberty, Freedom, Nazareth, Northampton. I mean, just heavy hitters. Easton. So what they are proposing to do, they'll have 10 duels and they'll compete twice against each team in its division, and they'll be 3 days apart. So if we wrestle on a Tuesday, we have Wednesday off, and then we wrestle again Thursday. So Tuesday, it's wow. Home at Easton. Thursday, it's away at Northampton. But they're wrestling within counties. So Lehigh County stays in Lehigh County, Monroe County, Monroe, Northampton. So they are gonna, and they can start wrestling December 16th. They can start having their in conference wrestling. A lot of schools are starting practice on Friday, the 20th. There's a lot of schools that just aren't. And it's impossible to know which schools are actually starting on Friday and which ones are not. And also with the EPC, they go quiet from December 24th to the 14th. So they have like a dead period between December 24th and the 14th where they can't wrestle these league matches. So, you're really only wrestling for about 10 days, then you take a break, and then you're wrestling 10 more. Colonial League is pretty similar. They're starting on the 12th. Now, this would include schools like Notre Dame, Green Pond, Saucon Valley, Wilson, Northwestern Lehigh, the Lehighs out there. Now, they're going to be off from the 24th to January 10th. So it's wild. I mean, and I have a lot of people ask, like, well, can you only wrestle in those league matches? And the answer I've been given is no, you can wrestle outside of that. So what difference does it make? Like, why, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can actually wrestle outside of those league matches, what's the point?
Right. If Team A goes and wrestles in a tournament, or, and then comes back and wrestles Team B, they could easily spread that to Team B. If you're going to allow the outside competition, then it does seem to really not make much sense to have all of the parameters that you can't go outside of within the league. If you're going to keep everybody within the league and within your county and all that, then I get it. It makes sense. But once you let one team go outside of that, then you risk that spread of every other team that they come into contact with.
Yeah, I mean, so again, like what are we actually doing? Are these protocols actually accomplishing anything? So as of right now, as of today at 6:30 in the evening, the things that are still happening are winter sports are supposed to start on time. Now that's from the PIAA. That's not individual schools. November 20th is the first practice for winter sports. In wrestling, December 11th is the first allowable date for first competition. You look at when the team tournament is supposed to be. It's supposed to be February 8th, 11th through the 13th. Regionals are 5th to the 6th. PIAA championships 11th to the 13th. Now, interesting, you have schools like Freedom and Bethlehem Liberty. So Bethlehem School District, they have no practice or matches until January 11th at all.
Wow.
East Stroudsburg, North and South, no practice or matches until January 15th. My question is, and I don't know if this was addressed today during the PIAA meeting, was if your school is all virtual, right? So say school A is all virtual until January. Can you technically have practices in your school? Like, can I come in and have a wrestling practice at a high school if we are all virtual? Do you know the answer, or do you know? I mean, I don't think anyone knows.
I don't know if it's if you're virtual for that long. I do know that locally for me, Berlin Brothers Valley had an issue with their cafeteria workers who were exposed to it, and so they shut the high school down because of the cafeteria issue. They're going virtual, but as of last night, they're still practicing on Friday. And the way it was explained to me was because with their situation, it wasn't so much the cases within the school that concerned them. It was that there were no cafeteria workers, so they couldn't have the school without the cafeteria workers. So they were going to go virtual for, I forget what the date is, but yeah, as of last night, the coach told me, yeah, they're going to be practicing on Friday.
So I mean that's again goes back to now when can they compete? Can they actually compete at a certain time, and is their first competition going to be on December 11th and 12th or what?
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody's schedule yet. I don't know what
forget
you've
having
seen
a
in
schedule.
terms of schedules, but I didn't even ask a coach for a schedule. Like I feel like I'd get something thrown at me, through a Zoom meeting if I asked for a schedule to like, hey, so when are you guys opening up? Like no one knows.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a good way to get punched in the face. Be like, excuse me, sir, I'm looking for your schedule. I don't have it here. And like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? I don't even know what I'm going to do tonight. Yeah, it's pretty wild just with all the movement going on. One thing is certain. The PIAA stance has always been we are going to try to have winter sports start on time within the regulations starting from that bottom up. If your school district says it's okay, all right. Now, what about your league? Does the league say it's okay? Okay. The district. How about the district? Are they on board? Yes. We're on board, so we're good. What about the Department of Health? That's where the wrench in all this was the mask mandate today, because the PIAA has flat out said we do not agree with at all the mask mandate for athletes and competitors. We don't think it's safe. We don't agree with it. We're upset. And they're saying to go talk to your local, your local representative to help change that. This isn't the first time the PIAA has said, well, hold up to Dr. Levine and Governor Wolf, like, hey, hold on. Can we at least work through this? I mean, they did kind of like the mic drop again, right? And they were like, oh, by the way, all athletes all the time, mask. And you're like, we have a football game in 2 days. Are you telling me my guys got to start training wearing masks or what?
Yeah, after not doing that the whole
right,
season,
so,
now all of a sudden we're going to.
But I think the recommendation right now from the PIAA is follow your local guidelines. I mean, if the school board come back and says, or your AD or whoever says, hey, you don't have to wear a mask for this game, they're not going to punish the kids for not wearing a mask. Well, maybe they're going to punish the team potentially. I don't know. There's so many unknowns. The what I gathered from all of this today is there's no clear and concise answer. It's different across the board. What happens in the EPC versus the WIPIAL versus District 6 versus District 5 is all going to be completely different. I just don't know. There's so many moving parts.
In effect, we know less today than we knew yesterday. Like, it's just muddied the waters even more.
Yeah, I would almost say it's muddied the waters a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, because there's been so many discussions and offshoots from this. Like, okay, well, if this happens, then what about this? Because to me, having to wrestle in a mask, if the stance of the Department of Health is if you're going to wrestle, you're going to wrestle in a mask, I'd say that's a nail in the coffin for the season of wrestling. And if the PIAA can't get them to bend at all on that. Now, I saw, like, you can do virtual, like, rifle, virtual swimming, and all these other, and virtual bowling. You can do virtual. So
is that just on the Wii?
I think it's just on the Wii.
Is that Wii bowling?
I think it's Wii bowling, which is kind of fun. We could do that. We could start our own little power hour, PA Power Wii bowling hour. There's no clarity on, if the governor says no, you shall wear a mask. Okay, so we're not wrestling then. Like, all these events aren't going to happen. At least in my opinion, I don't see anyone actually wrestling in masks. It's just crazy, Eric. It's absolute insanity. Do you feel any better after hearing me ramble on about the guidelines and what's been said? Because really, it's all over the place.
Right, and no, I don't feel better. I talked to one college coach today who told me he doesn't think that wrestling is going to happen at high school or collegiate levels this year.
Well,
that it's not going to happen.
Well, we didn't even talk about the PSAC, right?
Right.
What's going on there with the PSAC? And the language on that was completely insane too. Did you read that?
That's why. Yeah, I did. That's why I reached out, because I was like, wait, what does mandated schedule mean? So my understanding of it is, the way it was explained to me is that wiped out the regular season. The PSAC will not have a winter sports regular season. At this point, they're still leaving it open to a possible postseason. So we still could have PSAC teams in the NCAA tournament. If there's a D2 tournament and the couple D1 schools there, they could be competing, but there will be no regular season for them.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. So there's no regular season for per se. However, they could potentially wrestle. So it's not completely dead. They're
right. That's what I said. So it's like Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. So
there's a little bit of one.
Yeah, I love that. We got to move on, Eric. We are really beating this horse down. This horse is going to be continued to beat down. Let's go to a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to have Jake Woodley of Oklahoma and North Allegheny. We're going to talk about the U23 championship that he just won. We'll be right back.
This is The Tactical Mind, and I work with athletes in the field of sports psychology as a cognitive performance coach. Within 5 minutes of talking to a parent, they make the connection right away that this would be great for my kid to have when they're in college, when they're just going through the ups and downs of high school. Who wouldn't benefit from having more self-awareness? Who wouldn't benefit from having the ability to self-regulate our emotions and our counterproductive thoughts? Who wouldn't benefit from having more optimism, not just on the field, but in life?
All right, we are now joined. Look at this. We got Jake Woodley on the line with us now, and let me try to pull up the screen here so you can see all Jake Woodley's beautiful face here.
Can you see me all right?
Perfect. Can see you perfect. Thank you. Oh, that's Eric. We're going to go here. There we go. Jake, what's going on, man? How are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good, man. So, this is an interesting time, right? Because you got to compete at the U23s. There's no world tournament. So what was your mindset going into this? Like, hey, I won it last year, and then a guy named Bo Nickel came in and ruined that. So you're like, hey, I got to get back to work here and wrestle in the U23s. Talk about the mindset going into this.
It was just a good opportunity to go wrestle somewhere with not a lot of competition, and it was just good I was just excited to go wrestle again, especially with the season, not sure how it's going to work and nationals being taken from us and stuff. It was just a good opportunity to go wrestle.
And talk about this journey that you've had with Jake Warner. I mean, you guys wrestled. I mean, you guys have to have wrestled like what 14 times in the last 4 years.
Yeah, we've wrestled 5 times now.
I mean,
since end of my senior year. Yeah.
I was just talking about this with somebody. You wrestled him in the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, and it got a little chippy there. Jake was a little. He was like, you know what, I'm not playing this. It had to feel good because I mean, I don't know what the series is right now, but you've got him a couple times, but it has to feel pretty good to not only win, but to make a statement like that over a returning, All-American essentially.
Yeah, it felt really good. I'm 2-3 against him now, but I have my 2 wins are the most recent ones. So it was good to beat him twice in a row to like solidify, to kind of show that the first one wasn't a fluke. Like I can beat him every time.
And the bracket this year, I would say, was even deeper than it was last year. This year at 92, you had guys like Travis Stefanik. You had Nino Bonacorsi, your fellow Whippeal guy. He was on the bottom half. He lost to Warner. Nathan Traxler was there. Norfleet was there. You had a lot of studs there. You had to go in this feeling like, okay, like I'm going to be really tested here.
Yeah, when I saw who was in the weight, I was like, this is going to be tough. But I was excited that there was going to be good kids there because there's no reason to go drive 8 hours and make weight and stuff and not wrestle anyone tough. So I was excited to wrestle good kids, prove to myself that I can beat them.
Jake, how do you feel the difference between freestyle and folk style? Do you like freestyle? Does it suit you better? Just where are you between the two styles?
I feel like I might be a little better at freestyle, but either way, I'm good on my feet, and I'm better on my feet than I am on the mat in freestyle and folk style. So I kind of try and wrestle the same when I'm doing both. Just they're similar enough that I just got to get to my shots and clean finishes, and I'll do well. I don't know which one I really prefer, but I might be a little better at freestyle probably.
I mean, I feel like you made your money out in Fargo, man. You came away with so many stop signs out in Fargo, and especially like last year. I mean, at U23s, you had a good tournament, and if it wasn't for the fact that Bo Nickel had you had that wrestle off, that was still, you had a good match. You had a couple good matches with him still. So, yeah, I mean, I if you're asking me, I think maybe freestyle is definitely where we've seen you shine. Talk about what's it been like since the season got canceled. It was going to be your second trip to nationals, right? I mean, how devastating was that? It seems like eternity ago for me, at least. I mean, it feels like it was so long ago. How have you kind of come back from that?
Yeah, it was upsetting at first. They said no fans, and that's upsetting because it's one of the a lot of matches you can't get a lot of fans at, but the NCAA tournament's always crazy. So that was upsetting. And then a couple days after it, they canceled, and it was kind of hard going home. Everything was shut down. Couldn't, there weren't gyms open. It was kind of hard to train, but I just kind of made it work and, worked out however I could, whatever I could get my hands on.
Talk about
was that
this
difficult?
season.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
What talk about this season? I mean, really, there's so many unknowns, and Eric and I had just spent a half hour talking about the PIAA and all the unknowns there. I mean, again, it feels like Groundhog's Day because it's still everything's up in the air. Like, are you guys training as if hey, you're gonna have a season?
Yeah, we're looking at it. We're looking at it like we're gonna have. It's looking like it's gonna be January to March or something. And we're training as if it's gonna happen. Rather be safe than sorry, I guess. But yeah, I don't know how it's looking recently. It's kind of getting crazy again. So it's kind of worrying me a little bit.
How difficult is it to train when you don't have that tangible goal in front of you? When you don't have a start date, when you don't have, something coming up that is definitely going to be there. Is that difficult to go at it 100% in that situation?
It probably was a little bit in the summer when everything was shut down, but now that, we just had U23s and there's a possible season ahead, and once we get in the room every day, we're practicing every day, it's like normal. So it's not really difficult anymore. It probably was in the summer a little bit because you really didn't know, but now we're in the room every day, training every day, so it's like normal. I just hope we get to wrestle,
Yeah, get something in, man. I hope so too. And I feel like it was yesterday you were winning state titles at North Allegheny. How's life been down in Oklahoma for you? Are you enjoying life down in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I like it. It's a little different, but it's not as different as I thought it would be. It's not like cowboy boots and cowboy hats everywhere,
Yeah, right. Barbecue, just everyone's eating barbecue three times
Yeah.
a day.
Like there's people from all over, so it's not really that country like a lot of people might think it is, It's pretty normal. I like it.
And you actually have a couple of fellow PA wrestlers on the Oklahoma team already, and you're gaining a pretty big one with Alejandro Herrera Rondon, and he's a WPO guy, and we've been fortunate to follow his career for a long time, and I think he's gonna be a great addition to the Sooners, big time.
Yeah, we're excited about him and Tate Piccolo as well. We've got a pretty good recruiting class coming up. Yeah, Alejandro's good. He's tough. He should do pretty well.
I was kind of hoping we'd see Nino upset Warner at U23s and have you two wrestle, because I know you guys have trained a lot together. You guys know each other for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a lot of fun to have an all WPO final. But yeah, I it's just that's a loaded weight class there, so you got to feel pretty good coming away with that title, because I mean, look at all the NCAA qualifiers and All Americans there. So it has to be pretty good for you, and congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it felt good. It felt good to come out on top on that one.
Eric, anything else for the Boomer Sooner here?
No, just hope that you get back out on the mat soon, Jake. We're obviously we are keeping our fingers crossed and hope that whatever they need to do to get it going and get it going safely, we're looking forward to that, and can't wait to see you in action again.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I get another chance to compete soon too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jake, for joining us here tonight. It was a pleasure having you on. It's been a while since we've had you on, so it's always nice to have Jake Woodley on. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully on the mat very soon, and best of luck to you when we do, okay?
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Jake. Bye.
See ya.
All right. So Jake Woodley, man, I can't believe it's been 3 years now since he's been out of high school. That was a huge win for him at U23s, Eric. That was a loaded bracket that he was in with all those studs, and having him wrestle against Jake Warner, who he's wrestled multiple times in the past, and it's come out on the losing ends quite a few times. It had to be huge for him to do that.
Yeah, and it's funny whenever I see Jake's name, it reminds me of how big you were on him in high school.
Yeah.
And, kind of talking about it. And that's when you said it, I'm like, man, I can't believe the time has just flown by since we first got together and started working together. And you were, like I said, back then raving about Jake Woodley. And, obviously it was well deserved. And as you said, yeah, huge victory for him here to win a weight class like that. Because I know, how much you think of Nino as well. So those two WPO guys there really doing well in that 92 kilogram weight class.
Yeah, and he really burst on the scene in freestyle and in Fargo, and he had talked about what style he prefers, and he's had success in both. Obviously, he's a 2-time state champion, but the success that he's had at freestyle, I mean, he's essentially made 2 world teams, 2 U23 teams. There's not a tournament this year, and last year Bo Nickel came and challenged him after winning it. So I mean, you can say it's an asterisk there, but I mean, he's been right there with the best of them. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him back on the mat. I think he's poised for a good breakout year. I remember last year he wrestled Colin Moore pretty much right out of the gate at the start of the season, took him to overtime. He's right there with the best of them. So, but there was a lot of other PA power wrestlers that were at the U23 and junior championships, Eric, we're going to go through and just kind of mention some of those that happened. U23 women, Val Baker, and she's a Benton product, went to Wyoming Seminary. She finished third at 55 kilograms. And U23 Greco-Roman, Jake Hendricks, also a Wyoming Seminary guy who's now at Penn, he took second. The biggest tournament for Pennsylvania wrestlers was U23 Freestyle, which we just talked about with Jake Woodley. And there was some really good matchups here. A lot of surprising results, too, I think, from the national scene, Eric. Probably a few names that you probably are like, who is that?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. But, I mean, there's certainly some that we know really well, too. Like you look at 61 kilograms, and you got a couple really familiar names there with Austin DeSanto taking fourth place, losing to Ian Parker there. And then Mickey Philippi, who, you know, I would have thought, and he's kind of surprised me before with this, I wouldn't think that Mickey's style really translates that well to freestyle. But a sixth place finish there for him is pretty solid as well. That, you know, he's able to finish in a placement spot there.
I think DeSanto's still finding his sea legs a little bit with freestyle for sure. But this was like his really first tournament wrestling in freestyle. He takes fourth. Mickey Philippi, I agree. It was so weird. Not weird, but it was interesting to see Luke Pletcher in his corner coaching him. Because it's like we've seen them wrestle 1,000 times before in every single tournament imaginable, and now Luke's in the corner coaching Mickey. And Mickey put some post up that said, like, you know, there's no one else I'd rather have in the corner, which was pretty cool. But just interesting how that worked out. 65 kilograms, Max Murin, he takes third. That was a pretty deep bracket as well. Luke Kemmer took seventh. He beat Carter Happel from Iowa to take seventh. I thought he had a good win there. Another guy from Pennsylvania who's in Iowa is Caleb Young. He took second, losing to Will Lewin from Michigan. He lost to him 5-4. So a couple of Hawkeyes with DeSanto, Murin, and Caleb Young, all from Pennsylvania, performing pretty well, Eric.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good win for Caleb Young, I think, to take second there. You know, pretty strong performance out of him. So yeah, and Murin, you know, we'd seen him a little bit earlier. I know he had a good win over McKee in the Hawkeye Wrestling Club feature a week or so ago. So Max is really starting to show something a little bit in freestyle as well. He's a guy that kind of came on last year. You know, I know before the season there was talk about, you know, or before a year ago, whether he was going to get bumped out of the lineup. Yeah. You know, kind of everybody was looking down on him. And I think Max is really starting to hit his stride now.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's underestimated like every step of the way, I think. I feel like I heard people say, oh, Max is never going to see the lineup in Iowa. And like, you know, I'm just amazed at how much he has grown as a wrestler in college, because I mean, he's really outperformed, so to say, the people that you know, kind of were doubters of him, at least in the last couple of years. So I think he's solidified his mark of where he stands. So yeah, good performance by him. Greg Harvey from Pitt, he took sixth at 86 kilograms, and of course Jake Woodley at 92 kilograms. He beats Jake Warner from the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. The Iowa Hawkeyes didn't have a good finals. They had quite a few guys lose in the finals. Caleb Young, Nelson Brands, Warner. Woodley beats him 6-4. Nino Bonacorsi bounces back to take third after losing to Warner. Jordan Wood, he injury defaulted to fourth. He lost to Cassiope from Iowa, another guy from Iowa who lost in the finals. I hope Dyson's okay, because, you know, he's really all about the Hawkeyes. Wood takes fourth. Ethan Laird, interesting about him is he was a 97 kilogram guy, or 92.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, him and Jake Woodley. I mean, Jake Woodley wrestled him in the state finals. He lost to him at the NCAA tournament in Pittsburgh. Now he's bumped up to heavyweight for Ryder, which is interesting. He finishes fifth there. Pretty good performance for him, finishing ahead of guys like Luke Luffman and Costello. So, hey, maybe the added weight has done well for him.
Yeah. I was really surprised when I saw that he was up that high. I didn't realize that he had bumped up. But, yeah, impressive performance out of him to take fifth there.
Junior women, we had Ava Bayless take third at 50 kilograms. Val Baker competed in both junior and U23. She finished second at 55 kilograms in the junior. The junior Greco-Roman, Christian Coleman, he finishes in 8th place. He's out of Germantown Academy. Jacob Stefanowicz from Wyoming Seminary takes 4th at 72 kilograms. And Jake Hendricks of Penn, he finishes 1st at 82 kilograms. Jake Hendricks has been on a world team before in Greco, so he did a good job at 82 kilograms, finishing 1st there. So don't forget about the Greco guys, Eric.
Yeah, nice job there that, whenever you can go and do both at this level, that's really impressive. We see it sometimes at younger levels, but to do it at this level is really quite an accomplishment.
If you go up to the junior freestyle tournament, this is where we got to see a lot of guys that were recently in high school. Either they're redshirt freshmen now, or they're about to be freshmen or true freshmen. Cole Matthews took 2nd. He lost to Ridge Lovett of Nebraska in the finals at 61 kilograms. But I kind of another guy who, kind of like Mickey Philippi, I wasn't sure exactly how Cole's style would transition to freestyle, but he's done pretty well. In fact, I don't know if you got to see, but he beat up on Sammy Hilligus.
I saw the score. I didn't see the match.
Yeah. He was able to beat Sammy Hilligus. Sammy takes 3rd. Beating Carter Young by 10-3 decision to take 3rd at 61 kilograms. Chris Kim, this is an interesting one because he's at Michigan now. He's from Germantown Academy. He was a national prep All-American multiple times, but I was very surprised to see him up at 61 kilograms. He was a lighter guy coming out of high school, Eric.
Okay, so putting on some weight there as well.
Yeah, you probably remember him from Fargo because he was at Fargo every year that we were out there covering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So impressive to see him competing at that level. Clay Nori, who has made a world team before, he was a runner-up at 70 kilograms. He lost to Keegan O'Toole. He actually got pinned by him in a minute 40. Justin McCoy, your boy from Virginia, Chestnut Ridge, took 3rd at 70 kilograms. Ulrey, of course, made a world team 2 years ago, so pretty big for him to finish 2nd here. And Garrett Ninehouse, a state champion from Canyon Mac, is now at Purdue. He took 7th at 79 kilograms, which that was a kind of a deep weight. Michael O'Malley was really the special one here. He turned everyone's head, beating Patrick Kennedy from Iowa in the finals 2-0. That was a deep weight class, Eric.
Yeah, that was quite a run by O'Malley, as you said, and beating Kennedy in the finals. But Ninehouse, impressive performance by him to take 7th there, and kind of get things rolling for him.
And we talked about him earlier. Jake Hendricks, he doubled up. He finished 8th at 86 kilograms in freestyle this time, and rounding out was Hunter Katka. He and Ulrey they're now teammates at Virginia Tech. They were both world team members together. They both fell in the finals. Katka, I had heard Katka got banged up a little bit and he did wrestle in the finals, lost to Josh Heinzelman from Oklahoma. He lost to him 15-6 in the finals. Jacob Slinger, he was from George Mason. Now he's at Pitt now, heavyweight. He took 5th there, Eric. So a lot of Pitt guys. It was
solid
very nice
showing. Yeah, solid showing. I think it was 8 Pitt guys that Pittsburgh Wrestling Club guys that placed here. So yeah, very solid showing by them. And I think you're starting to see that Keith Gavin influence. His freestyle background, and that they're really starting to make strides there where maybe you hadn't seen that quite as much before.
I agree with you. I was impressed with 2 things. I was impressed with Pennsylvania overall, but I was impressed with the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center. The folks from Drexel and Penn, I thought wrestled really well. We talked about O'Malley, and I thought Pitt wrestled really well. I thought Matthews, Slinger, and Greg Harvey, I thought they all wrestled tough. It's nice to see that these 2 programs in Pennsylvania are making strides. Especially in freestyle. So maybe it's Keith Gavin coming out of retirement that sparked that resurgence. What do you think, Eric?
That could have been it. They were out training with him, getting coach ready for the event there a couple weeks ago. Maybe.
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to see him on the mat. That's for sure. Retired or not, he's definitely not someone I want to run into. We had a couple big commitments recently, and Brown was on the receiving end of 2 of them. Drew Cleary from Nazareth, who was at Princeton, has now committed to Brown. So he flips from one Ivy League school to another. So that was a pretty big pickup for Brown. I think Cleary has a huge upside. If you remember, he was down at 132, jumped up to 182. So I think he's got a lot of potential. And also a guy who we saw at True Power, Ian Oswalt from Burrell. We had talked to him. He was interested in Stanford. Stanford was his number one pick, and then Stanford drops the program. He's going to join his teammate, A.J. Corrado from Burrell. He's going to be at Brown as well. So huge pickup for Brown to get both Ian Oswalt and Drew Cleary, two of the top-ranked guys in the class of 2021. And two impressive young men who are going to Ivy League schools. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the first thing I look at is that's fantastic for them. I mean, if you can get an Ivy League education where they're going to help you out, obviously with the wrestling, they're going to make sure you can get, as much money as you can for different things. That's awesome. Kudos to those guys for having the grades and the aptitude to go along with the wrestling prowess to be able to go to a Brown and compete there. And yeah, it's nice to see a little Pennsylvania Power pipeline up to Brown there, and kind of solidifying that and getting a couple local guys up to there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see all these folks from Pennsylvania going to Ivy League and to programs that maybe aren't traditionally known as wrestling programs, but they're getting big name guys. I mean, I think both those guys are huge gets for Brown. So I'm looking forward to seeing them both at the next level. Tiffany Boblitz from Kennerdale, she committed to King College. She's going to be a Tornado. She's been one of the top female wrestlers in Pennsylvania, along with Montana DeLauder, Lily Scher, Ava Bayless. She won the Super 32 just recently. She's done a whole heck of a lot in her career out of District 3. She's been part of that District 3 girls pipeline of wrestlers. So she's committed to a powerhouse school in King, the King Tornadoes. So excited for her. Lily Scher also committed. She committed to Lock Haven. That was a really, I was very happy to see that because she kind of hinted at it to me that she was going to be making a commitment here pretty soon, and she dropped that she was going to Lock Haven, which Ronnie Perry and his program up there is just, I mean, they're getting a ton of good wrestlers up there. I'm super excited for Ronnie and to see what's happening up in Lock Haven with girls wrestling and growing that sport. I think it's just going to be great. They weren't the only ones to get a commitment too, Erica. Someone out your way from Forest Hills, Ryan Wyant, he committed to Lock Haven most recently at class of 2025, and he's a state place winner. We've talked about him numerous times on the show before. He goes to Lock Haven, another good get for them.
Yeah, and we've talked about him a little bit, kind of a funky style, has no issues going to his back, and if they can kind of harness that and use his big playability, if you will, while eliminating a little bit of that risk, I think he could be a guy that really blossoms when he gets to that collegiate level. And you mentioned Forest Hills. I mean, this has been such a big show. We haven't even gotten into any of the stuff that happened with Forest Hills and Bishop McCourt with Eric and Mason Gibson, both leaving Forest Hills and going to Bishop McCourt. And then, a host of younger guys, many of the Forest Hills Ranger Pride wrestling guys that are among the top ranked guys in the nation at the middle school level have now transferred to Bishop McCourt as well.
Yeah, and that was on my list of things to talk about here tonight, Eric, and really the time just kind of got away from us, and we talked so much about the things going on in the PIAA and of course Jake Woodley, but you're right, Eric Gibson, his brother Mason Gibson, a slew of others in the younger ranks coming up through, including the Bassetts, are all going to be at Bishop McCourt. This is huge for a variety of reasons, and we don't have time to talk about tonight, but we can talk about it on the next show. Trust me, we got plenty of time. The PIAA and the rest of the world doesn't really know what's going on, so we have plenty of time to talk about it. But this is huge, and you talked about it in an article about the shakeup of District 6, and really the reverberations that are going to be happening after this. Forest Hills and losing that pipeline of the Ranger Pride kids. Huge implications on, and here's the other thing. Are they going to be eligible? That's another question. What are the issues with eligibility? Are we actually going to see them competing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's that's one of the very hot questions in District 6 is what's going to happen there. I would certainly imagine that somebody's going to challenge that move. And, I still a little unclear, how the rule works. The wrestlers who are past their freshman year can't transfer. So we know that affects Eric, but I'm not sure if a wrestler starts his freshman year at a school and transfers mid-season like Mason is, how does that affect it? Is he in jeopardy? I'm not really sure. So I've talked to some people, but I don't have an answer that I'm confident in that whether or not he's going to face any issues as well.
Based on what I remember reading in the legislation of that was passed with the transfer, I believe because he had already started, he was enrolled at Forest Hills, that is not going to be in his favor. I don't know that for sure. What we should do? We should ask the PIAA. Maybe ask an AD. Can't do that because no one knows.
PIAA doesn't. They don't have anything else going on right now.
Oh,
let's go ask him.
Yeah, my gosh. We'll ask him. Yeah, that's a ton. That's an onion in itself. The whole Forest Hills McCourt thing, and I apologize to the fans that we weren't able to get to that tonight. Again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that on our next show. But man, to say right now, I hope you know a little bit more than what you knew before the start of this podcast, but you probably don't because there's so many unknowns right now, Eric. But just know that it's a fluid situation, Eric.
And we're going to be here to help you get through it. No matter what happens, we're going to be here. We're going to be your rock to depend on. That, whether or not we have a season, whether or not it's pushed back to January, PA Power will be here finding wrestling content for you.
And you have to be safe, so we're going to have PA Power mask, okay? We're going to have our PA Power mask. Got to mask up PA, mask up PA, mask up PA Power. Yeah, man, I'm excited. Hopefully we get some more insight and news on this. I'll have to check Twitter, check the what's going on with the updates. But as of right now, the PIAA season, a lot of practices are going to start on Friday. Competitions, if they would happen, aren't going to be happening to the 12th or 13th. So we'll kind of keep you as much informed as we can with who's starting when. As of right now, the Powerade is happening. Powerade is going to be happening at Monroeville Convention Center. You can visit the website on PAPowerWrestling.com to get all the information to sign up for the junior tournament, the JV, the girls. But as of right now, that's happening. So maybe some other ones are going to happen as well, Eric.
Fingers crossed, whatever lucky things you've got to lean on, use those, rabbit's foot, whatever. And hopefully we can find a way to get the season going and make it the whole way through March.
Absolutely. You got it, Eric. And we will keep you posted. You can follow along all the updates. PA Power Wrestle on Twitter, PA Power Wrestling on Facebook, PA Power Wrestling on Instagram. Want to thank Jake Woodley of Oklahoma for stopping by and talking about his win over Jake Warner at the U23 tournament. Also, our sponsor, Tactful Mind. Definitely check out Nick Fuller and the Tactful Mind to get yourself in the right set of mind going into the season, especially with all the unknowns. Eric, man, next time hopefully we'll have some more clear information for the fans, okay?
Yeah, and hopefully some good news next time, but a little depressing today, but still some optimism out there.
Absolutely. Eric, thank you, and thanks for you tuning in. Stay tuned for more from PA Power Wrestling. Talk to you soon, fans.